When I say the word dystopia, what pops into your head? Probably ruined cities, right? Obvious oppression. But what if a real modern dystopia looked completely different? What if it looked successful, prosperous even, normal? Today, we're going to unpack a blueprint for exactly that, a concept our source material calls the dystopian paradox.
So let's ask that again. What does a dystopia really look like? The sources we're looking at argue that the most effective ones aren't about chaos and collapse at all. No. Instead, they're built on this quiet, systematic control that actually hides in plain sight. And that's what challenges everything we think we know. Okay, so this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got the classic dystopia we all know from books and movies. But on the right, that's the modern blueprint. A facade of normality replaces visible suffering, and the law itself, not some chaotic violence, becomes the main weapon of control. It's a total flip of the script. All right, so how do you actually build something like this? Well, the very first pillar is this fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea, using prosperity not as a sign of freedom, but as a really sophisticated tool for control. So how does this actually work in practice? The sources call it a powerful masking effect. First off, you've got this powerful illusion of freedom. I mean, the economy's doing well, the city looks great, life feels normal, and that creates a huge distraction. People's focus shifts from big ideas about collective rights to just personal gain. And over time, that comfort makes losing a few freedoms seem like a totally fair trade for stability. Control is achieved through quiet compliance, not by cracking down with force. There's this metaphor in our source material that just nails it. It says, it's like being on a luxury cruise ship. You're so busy enjoying the amazing food and the entertainment that you just don't notice the crew quietly locking the cabin doors and, oh yeah, changing the ship's entire destination. The comfort is the distraction. Okay, so if prosperity is the disguise, what's the actual weapon here? Well, the second piece of this blueprint shows how the very thing that's supposed to protect your rights, the law, can be twisted and turned into a weapon against you. And it all starts with language. The sources we're examining point right to the use of these really vague, really expansive legal terms for crimes like collusion. The whole idea is to blur the lines so no one knows exactly where lawful expression ends and criminal behavior begins. And that's the key. The vagueness isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the whole point. And this deliberate ambiguity creates what you could call an architecture of control. It creates this constant low-level fear and uncertainty, because you know the punishment for crossing that invisible line could be totally unpredictable and severe. And all the while, the state can maintain this appearance of legitimacy, claiming it's just upholding the rule of law, even as it's gutting freedom from the inside out. And this leads to another really powerful image from our sources, an invisible, electrified fence. Because you never ever know where the boundary is, you just stop moving. You stop trying to find the edge. You choose the safety of just being still over the risk of getting that shock from a line you couldn't even see. It's a kind of psychological paralysis. And all of this leads to the final stage, which is honestly the most chilling part of this whole model. The goal isn't just about the state enforcing rules anymore. The ultimate goal is to get people to police themselves, to the point where each person's own mind becomes its own cage. So think about how this actually plays out in someone's head. It's a pretty clear process. First, you think about expressing an opinion, maybe online, maybe with friends, but then you start calculating. You remember those vague laws, the unpredictable punishments. You do a quick risk assessment in your head. And what's the outcome? Almost always, it's self-censorship. You just choose to stay quiet. And this, right here, is what the source material calls a dystopian success. It's the point where the state has essentially outsourced the job of censorship to its own citizens. The system becomes so efficient that it basically runs on its own, powered by this deep, internalized fear. And of course, this self-censorship doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's reinforced by deliberately engineering the entire public narrative. Independent media gets shut down, journalists are arrested, certain books and materials disappear from libraries and schools. It's what our sources call a slow suffocation of public discussion. The goal isn't just to control what you think now, but to control memory itself and, by extension, the future. So when you put all these pieces together, the prosperity, the law as a weapon, and the self-censorship, you get this final, really powerful metaphor that ties it all up and gives us a name for this whole system. It's called the velvet cage. Think about that. It's a cage, for sure. It's an enclosure, and it is absolutely restricting your freedom. But the bars? They're lined with the velvet of economic comfort and day-to-day normality. It makes the confinement feel, well, comfortable, maybe even unnoticeable, right up until the moment you decide to push against them. And that leaves us with the one big, provocative question at the very heart of this dystopian paradox. It's something we're left to really think about. If a cage is comfortable enough, do you even notice the bars?